we are supposed, as a country, haven't done that, to be presenting periodic reports of the state of torture in the country and how we are addressing it as a nation. But this is 20 years down the line. Like I said, the country has not submitted a report to the Convention Against Torture. Nigeria will be reviewed at the 72nd session in November of the convention in Geneva. It's been said that in the absence of this report as a country, that Nigeria will still be reviewed. So they have reached out to civil society organizations, those of us working around public safety, security issues, PRAWA and the CLEEN Foundation, to share with them a CSO report. So a CSO report is like a shadow report of what the state of torture is and if there have been progress around, and then also call on governments to also send its own report. What you see here happening today is the validation of that report. So there's a draft report that has been developed. Civil society partners here representing the various spectrum, those working around legal issues, are also here to sort of look at that draft and then validate it to say, okay, this is fine, this captures the essence of it. So essentially this is what we are doing here today, so that at the end of the day, it's not just CLEEN and PRAWA that sits somewhere to develop it, but that there is a wide stakeholders input into the document. Stopping torture by our various security and law enforcement, not just them, other private individuals, it has been a challenge, and really. So we're essentially trying to validate our report that it captures the states where we are in Nigeria.
We want these laws to be enforced, to be implemented. You don't just have laws and you don't implement it. And then once somebody is caught or found guilty of doing this, then let the person be fully prosecuted and sanctioned. And it has to be done speedily. We want to say no to impunity, because that's how it continues. If somebody is tortured and nothing happens, then there's a problem. So all the panels that were set up to look at all alleged cases of torture and violation of human rights by SARS and other specialized units, we want to make sure that those panels are supported to finish their work. We want to make sure that victims are properly compensated, that we have proper attention to the victims, including full rehabilitation where needs be. It's one thing to make laws, it's also another thing to implement the laws. And we find that to make this happen, there must be access for people who have been, whose rights have been infringed upon, to make complaints. There must be access. Then also the mechanisms for oversight. We want the National Human Rights Commission to be empowered properly. We want all the agencies that have oversight mechanisms, they should be empowered. The National Committee Against Torture should be empowered to be able to visit places of detention. And Section 2122 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 talks about some of these committees and mechanisms that should visit places of detention. It should happen.
So, from the report that we are reviewing, it shows what various organizations have done, and the statistics clearly come from that report. But from my own position, from my own organization where we stand, we've had reports from pro bono lawyers who are working with us that oftentimes citizens are made to write or sign confessional statements after they have been tortured. This is clearly against our own domestic laws. For instance, the SCJA and other laws is clearly illegal, but from reports it shows that it still goes on in Nigeria. Your fundamental rights are rights that accrue to you for simply being a human being, and the right to dignity is one of the most fundamental of them, and torture is a deviation from that right. And what we are saying is that no matter the country where you are or your location, you should not be tortured. No human being should be tortured.
How many of our people do know that they are protected by the laws, against torture, inhuman and degrading treatment? Have they actually accepted that torture should be part of our lives? So the people should know. When you know your rights, you are able to appropriate your rights. But in ignorance, you think that everything that comes to you, should be accepted. And knowing about your rights is equally standing on the rights and being able to report, because without knowledge that somebody has been tortured, maybe somebody that is seeking accountability may not be able to do that, because you equally need somebody to stand by to say, yes, this is my experience. I actually went through this. You can't go prosecuting as expected by the Anti-Torture Act or punishing any officer without having evidence.